Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of Loki, The Nexus event. And I really enjoyed this episode, though the premise of how we get Sylvie and Loki off of Lamentis goes more into the plot demands territory than I like, but we'll kind of see how it kind of goes. They could do some more shit with it. It's just like, alright, you kind of have to explain why that kind of happens. So, we begin the episode by seeing this little girl playing with toys in Asgard. And then we see Renslayer, as a hunter, bring her into the TVA because it's a Nexus event. They set up a charge that prunes the timeline. It doesn't really make much sense why this little girl, that we find out pretty much is Sylvie, has a Nexus event thing going on. She's just playing with toys at this point. It's really kind of weird. Of course, talking about Valkyrie and Fenris and stuff like that going on with the Longship and everything. It's just like, okay, weird. Of course, we see her freaking out at what's going on in the TVA, going through all the stuff that Loki had to go through as well, as they're bringing through what's going on. And we see that she's concerned about this one dude that was brought in, variant style as well, wanting them to help him, and of course them just telling her to, well, not even really acknowledging her outbursts and everything. She goes through the system. She's pretty much brought forth to the judge kind of portion, but she steals the temp pad off of Renslayer and is able to move on and get out of there. That then brings us up to speed of what's going on in Lamentis. We see that her and Loki are sitting down and pretty much talking about what's going on, because they're like, well, we're pretty much going to be dying here, and trying to figure out what's going on. And she's been saying that she's been growing up like that, moving from apocalypse to apocalypse, and that it's a kind of shitty way to grow up, which it is, because you're hiding and trying to figure out how to take on this weird shadowy organization that tells you that you've done something wrong, when even by most rationale, looking at what she was doing, I can't tell how there was a Nexus event on that thing. Now, you're just like, wow, seeing what she's kind of gone through, it kind of helps and everything. It's like, alright, how are they gonna fucking get out of this one? We see them pretty much talk about what kind of makes a Loki, and of course, our Endgame one talks about how they might lose sometimes, but they don't die, which is kind of strange since we saw one die in Infinity War. I understand what he's kind of trying to say, but of course this is Avengers 2012 Loki from Endgame style, so he did grow a lot and do a lot of other things after then to have a kind of different perspective, but this still lines up with the Loki that we had kind of back then, and what he's kind of seeing going on now. So they're pretty much just holding hands or whatnot and getting ready for the eventual end. And we then go back to the TVA. They're trying to figure out where they're at, and of course they see a Nexus spike. It's like, what the fuck? And it's really kind of weird that you would be doing a kind of, if not a romantic relationship, some kind of deeper feelings kind of thing. You're almost thinking in your head, would that be considered masturbation, incest? What are the fucking logistics of this shit? Logistically, it's just like, what? Alright. And then never mind the fact that it, like, for some reason created a Nexus event of such epic proportions that it was able to be like, hey, this apocalypse thing's happening where everybody's dying, but something's fucking going on. And it just kind of, we needed a little bit more connective tissue work for this to kind of go on. Like, they were able to kind of more finely tune their equipment to find things going on in an apocalypse scenario or something. They just needed a little bit more there. So the TVA is able to pop up and get them out before it goes on. We see them with their collars and everything, and they are led off to different places. Mobius pretty much just like pissed off and like, oh yeah, he's like, oh, you're calling me all these different kind of things. I'm like, I just think you're a bad friend and that you kind of suck, pretty much. It's like, well, what do you have for me? It's like, the TVA is lying to you. And then they throw Loki into a time cell, which we learn what they call it later on. But it's essentially a time loop where we do get the actress who played Sif And evidently Loki cut her hair in her sleep or whatnot, and she's like, "You think this is funny?" And pretty much like beats his ass a little bit, does a knee to the groin kind of thing, and then storms off saying that he'll always be alone. And that's pretty much where Loki goes on, but he does learn from it, going through pretty much thousands of times on this loop, being like, the reason I did this was because I wanted attention, because I'm a narcissist, and I don't want to be like alone, and all of that. And it's interesting, like he seeks this attention and everything like that, and why he seeks that attention in the ways he does, and he says that he's sorry, and we kind of feel that he's able to convey that. And the thing is, even though Loki's the god of mischief and lies are part and parcel to who he is, you can tell when Loki is being sincere or lying so damn well to get out of something. With this, where he's really having a pivotal kind of character moment where he's coming to terms with, yes, he's a narcissist, and that has led to him doing vastly stupid and insane kind of shit. There's reasons behind it, and he's getting into those reasons, like, alright, cool. So, that's pretty much what Loki's up to, while Mobius is kind of going out and trying to figure what things are going on. He does pull him out, and pretty much tries to, at one point, to figure out what's kind of going on with him. He's like, you ready to talk kind of shit? Good cop, bad cop kind of shit. And he wants to have more information. He's asking if he was partnered up with Sylvie. He's like, no. He at first tries to play it off that he was just using her, kind of like he would have been using Thanos. But then he lets the bomb drop that, oh, Sylvie's dead. They already took her ass out. Nothing else going on there. And he's like, wait, what? And he's sticking to that point because Sylvie means something to him at this point. Now, I can understand that, it's going kind of fast to get to kind of like any kind of big attachments to it, but we haven't seen that Loki has like gone into full-on love, but Sylvie means at least a big portion to a bigger kind of relationship portion to him because of the kind of stuff that they've gone through and the stuff that they've learned about each other. And Loki does let the bomb drop that they are variants in the TVA, that you're not born here, you're variants and everything. It's like, okay, we'll have to see about that. And see, Mobius has been having difficulty with Renslayer because while they see what's going on, he's been pushing for Renslayer to let him interrogate Sylvie, and she doesn't. And she says that the Hunter C-20, the one that we had learned about the whole variance issue in the TVA, she's dead. And said that like the enchantments led her to a decline, and Mobius is like, okay, I'll kind of buy that, but I don't really buy that. We also see them kind of talking in finishing up kind of paperwork, saying that the timekeepers want to have them pruned in front of them, and to get that all done, I was like, yeah, alright, good deal, we got this all done. She kind of wants a lighthearted thing of like, if you could be anywhere, anytime, where would you be? But the thing is, Mobius isn't playing this game. He's like, what about Sylvie? What about Loki? What about all this stuff going on? And she's like, forget about it. And she puts Sylvie's sword as a trophy in the room. He says that he's pretty much done after one drink. He kind of wants to figure out other things. And during this, while she was placing the sword as a trophy, he switches out their temp pads because he's not buying kind of what's going on. He even had to tell Hunter B-15 that he didn't know what was going on with C-20. He was still following the stuff going on. And we got a very interesting drop because she's like, yeah, what's kind of going on here? She's acting a little bit funny. He's bringing up that, like, yeah, we've dealt with, like, Kree, Titans, and vampires. So we get that there's probably other Thanos and other kind of Titans that they dealt with, and vampires. Actual confirmation of vampires, even if they're in variant form and being dealt with the sacred timeline. So it's like, yeah, baby, that was pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, Blade, all these other kind of supernatural things. That was a nice thing. There's nice little drops that it's like, they don't draw too much attention, but I'm just like, I appreciate that. You know what I mean? I'm like, let's get this going on. So, he had pretty much put Loki back into the time cell. That's where, of course, where he talks about his narcissistic stuff and everything like that. And he, of course, now has the temp pad that he had taken from Renslayer. B-15 also getting kind of freaked out looking at the whole thing going on. It's like, yeah, nobody really kind of stopped to talk with her about her being enchanted, did they? So she's kind of freaked out. She goes in to Sylvie and takes her to the Rock's Cart apocalypse scenario and asks what's going on, gets the lowdown on everything. She's like, you put those memories in my head, right? She's like, no, I can't do that. I take memories and I'm able to use them. If it's not there, it's not going to work, you know what I mean? And so they're like, what do we do now? So evidently they kind of come up with their own kind of thing. Mobius, of course, takes the temp pad and tries to see what's going on, is able to get in and get more information that, yes, C-20 is dead because he understands that he cannot trust his superior anymore. Granted, I understand the chain of command, and sometimes you have to keep some information in the back pocket, mainly in dealing with some kind of weird scenario or something that if certain information leaked, you're not able to do something. This is cover-up because it's like, okay, everybody's variants, and we see that C-20 was making complete sense as it was recorded on that temp pad and pretty much confirmed that Renslayer is in on it. So Mobius is like, I'm not digging with this. So he goes into Loki's time cell, pretty much is like, listen, I'm trusting you. I'm trying to build back the trust that we lost, alright? I got your information. It's good to go. We need to figure out kind of what to do here. Loki's, alright, cool, let's go. But they get out, and of course Renslayer has figured out that her temp pad was gone, and they prune Mobius. It's like, shit, that sucks. So they take Loki. Renslayer's able to get in and take Sylvie, and she's, of course, wet and everything. It's like, alright, cool. What's B-15 doing? It's like, alright. And she's not there anymore. It's like, alright, whatever. So they pretty much take him down to the gold elevators to take him to the timekeepers. And an interesting kind of thing is, remember the color gold and kind of how this is playing out. So we go down and we see them taken before the timekeepers. They're doing their kind of bullshit, trying to bullshit Loki and them, be like, oh yeah, got any last kind of words and shit? And Loki's like, fuck your shit. What are you fucking doing down here? But of course, as they're pretty much being their timekeepers, tells them, be like, yeah, we bad, we got this. B-15 comes out and starts fucking some shit up, and we start a pretty nice fight sequence. It's pretty clear, and we can kind of see what's going on. There is some kind of misty kind of fog thing going on that does kind of muddle with it a little bit, but not to a severe extent. You don't be like, I can't see what the fuck is going on here. So they've got these like weird kind of like pruning batons that also have sharp pointy ends at the end. So that way you can have a kind of pick and choose of what you kind of want to do. But B-15 kind of gets knocked out of commission, but not before pretty much setting up Sylvie and Loki for being able to kind of like handle what's going on. And they kind of knock pretty much everybody out to a degree. And then Sylvie like throws her sword at them, and we find out that the timekeepers are androids. Wizard of Oz, this motherfucker. We saw the golden kind of yellow brick road kind of shit to it. It's like, yeah, okay, then what the fuck is going on? What? Okay, it starts opening up more kind of things like, okay, we don't have three super powerful beings kind of keeping these things in check. So why the fuck are they able to have some kind of suppression field on the Tesseract and the Infinity Stones? Somebody's doing some big ass shit. Now granted, time things could be linked to Kang the Conqueror. This would be a nice way to kind of seed his introduction in the third Ant-Man and Wasp movie. But we'll kind of have to see, because evidently Renslayer knows more than she's letting on. And Sylvie's just like, this was my big shit. This was my plan. I just don't know what the fuck is going on now. And Loki's like, now granted, she's not freaking out, mind you. It's just like when you see her looking like, the fuck's going on? And Loki's like, listen, I'm going to help you. We're going to figure this out. We got this. But then we see that he is pruned by Renslayer. and actually in a similar fashion to Coulson. It kind of echoes it. It's not like over the head because we see the pruning thing come through him, kind of similar to how Coulson was, as he's kind of like holding on to Sylvie, and then he disappears. Sylvie, of course, is pissed off and is able to get Renslayer in a compromised position and be like, you're going to tell me everything now. And that's where the episode ends first. So then we get to the credits, and then we see, at the end, that Endgame Loki is not dead. Whenever you prune something, it evidently goes somewhere. So it's not a murder. So this also equals out to, okay, what does pruning actually fucking do? What does pruning in a timeline actually do? So it's interesting that we've got this kind of Dorothy Oz kind of thing going on with, of course, our Loki introduced into this whole thing. We get one set of rules, and then we find out that's just what we are told are the rules, and we don't know the exact thing going on. Because he wakes up and gets introduced to these other cadre of characters, saying like, hey, you're not dead yet, but we're going to need your help, and you're going to need our help. And it flashes over, and we see 4 other Lokis in a kind of like screwed up kind of New York City, and I think people have even seen like the Avengers Tower. One of the Loki variants is dressed up in like the original Loki Marvel Universe kind of thing, like back in the 60s. It's like weird looking, like, alright, cool. Then of course we get the Kid Loki variant that we've seen throughout the comics before, linked with like the Young Avengers. He is holding a crocodile alligator kind of Loki with the fucking headband. Now, I don't know if that's in the comics, but I think that's more linking to Throg, Thor frog. So at one point Loki turned Thor into a frog, and he actually was able to use Mjolnir, and then Thor, of course, got better. She turned me into a newt. I got better. And, of course, then it was turned into an actual character who actually does kick ass. Throg is not someone you want to fuck with. Actually, Jason Aaron kind of used him when we had seen stuff going on with Donald Blake. That's actually pretty cool. And then we see another Loki on the left side that is carrying some kind of hammer and has more of a kind of like Nordic kind of outfit, kind of furry and kind of more armory, you know what I mean? And let's see, so there at that point I'm wondering what that means for like Mobius and other characters that have been pruned and other timelines as well, because that's a lot of timelines, and if they go somewhere they could like merge into something that could be quite interesting to have to kind of deal with. So, I definitely enjoyed this episode more than the previous episode, mainly because I think that whenever you're getting into TV series, you are going to have dud kind of like episodes, and that one isn't one of like a full-on dud because it gave us the information of like the TVA being made up of variants, and its effective use in this episode. So as setup, it kind of worked to make this episode work better. Seeing things of like how the TVA has like a time cell that it can time loop you, kind of like a solitary confinement kind of thing. And then that the whole breakdown of like we still don't understand what is going on with the TVA, and hopefully we'll get a fuller picture of that in episodes 5 and 6. And then we've got the whole thing of what happens when you're pruned, and I think that episode 5 will probably heavily deal with that, and we're going to have like essentially it would be an interesting kind of turn of events that the heroes of this story is an army of Lokis trying to undo this weird fucking insane ass organization doing these weird fascistic shitty ass things of like fucking even just going and getting a kid and saying you're a variant, you're fucking up the sacred timeline, because we have seen that like a council of 3 superpowered motherfuckers isn't making that. Someone is. And they're trying to make this work to some degree for some reason, and hopefully we get that. And this could definitely, of course, I thought this would have the best chance of like opening up the multiverse of madness that we are pretty much seeding up for what's going on in Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange deals with that heavily. And is going to have some crazy ass shit. So it's like, okay, who's doing this? What are their objectives? How are they doing this? And where are we going from here? And how is Loki going to affect that and change that? So I'm like, alright, you got me better on this one. I don't mind the kind of dip episode that we got in the third one. I'm just like, okay, I kind of wish a little more happened here. And then we got a good amount happening here. So it's like, let's see where this goes. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.